breaking news about America's national security and the warnings from the FBI to local, state, and federal law enforcement about the possibility of terror attacks right here in the homeland. CBS News got a look at a new joint bulletin that warns groups like al-Qaeda and ISIS will likely use the Israel-Hamas war to increase calls for violence in the U.S. this holiday season. This bulletin right here says that the most likely primary targets could include churches, synagogues, and members of the Jewish community. Now, today, the FBI director was telling senators that the U.S. is facing the highest risk of attack in years, that there are blinking lights everywhere, and warning terrorists will exploit the southern border. The head of the FBI says the Bureau is working to identify and disrupt these potential attacks, with foreign terrorist groups openly calling for strikes against Americans. He also said that the number of threats are at a whole other level since the October 7th attack on Israel.
If you are seeing this video, I'm going to show you something very important. And this has to do with every single person who lives in America right now. And I'm going to make a broad statement right here. In this statement, I want you guys to come back to this video within a year and tell me if it wasn't correct. 2025 will be the best year of every single person who has a job and works in America's life. You want to know why? There's a certain individual, and first off, let me say this. I, by no means, am on any side of politics. I'm neutral. But as a businessman, I stand on business. And one thing I do know is if you know about money, then you are going to agree with what this next person I'm going to show you has to say. 2025, everything's about to change, guys. Check this out.
On the payroll tax, we'll be terminating the payroll tax after I hopefully get elected. We'll be terminating the payroll tax, so that will mean anywhere from $5,000 to even more per family, and also great for businesses and great for jobs. A lot of people will be very happy to hear that. A lot of the great, certainly conservative economists will be great to have. They think that's the greatest thing we can do. That's better than the payments. That's better than anything else. But it's a lot of money, and it's going right directly to the people, and it goes there very easily. But it also creates stronger companies to employ the people. So we will be, on the assumption I win, we are going to be terminating the payroll tax after the beginning of the new year.
You're in another country and something like a war breaks out like Israel and Hamas. What is the first thing you're going to do as a U.S. citizen? This is something you should have done before you left. This is the number one thing you need to do before you travel, because there's a worldwide caution advisory for travel for American citizens. Now, of course, you're going to stay alert since you're already there, but you're going to enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. Just do it now. Even if you don't have anything planned, go ahead and enroll in this program. It's so important. So what is it? It's a free service to allow U.S. citizens and nationals traveling abroad to enroll with local U.S. embassies and consulates. So you would start there at new user, the new user information, contact information, emergency contact, your passport information, things like that. It's going to take you to something that looks like this. You have your vacation, your trip, whatever you have planned, you would add it at the top, and it's going to give you the trip advisories. And pretty much if something like this does happen, this is a way for the U.S. to contact you, or you to contact the U.S. to get help and assistance that you need to get out of there and to get safe, and what they add this to the list of things you need to do and check before you leave for international travel, but everyone stay safe. I am praying for every single civilian that has been impacted in this war, and I'm sure the millions of people to come, because it does not look like it's going to slow down anytime soon. So every single person, you're in my thoughts and in my prayers. And follow me here for more travel tips, travel deals, everything travel. Good luck, guys. Happy traveling.
They warned us, America, and most Americans are not paying attention. Okay, the Super Bowl's over. That distraction is done. And I hope to distract you a little bit and bring your attention over to our monetary system. The average American makes $59,000 a year, which is about $4,900 per month. The average mortgage is $2,800 per month. The average grocery bill for a family of 4 is around $900. The average car payment, which is disgusting, is around $700 for a new car. If we take the mortgage, the car payment, and just groceries, that leaves us with about $330 left. We haven't accounted for gas. We haven't accounted for food for the kid, or for clothes for the kids, or any schooling activities, or anything outside of those three things. The average American has 50% of Americans have less than $500 in savings. And the average retirement in America, retirement account, is at around $96,000. We have to get out of the Coliseum and learn financial literacy. Wall Street has been dominating us long enough. And the reason why Wall Street has dominated, because we have not had sovereignty or access to the same markets they have, but now we do. And that's why there's so much distraction around crypto, Robinhood, GameStop, because they don't want the normal person to know that they can become a retail investor and take sovereignty of their wealth. But I'm here to tell you that's a new wave. And parents, that's what your kids are going to be doing. Stop telling your kids to go to school, get a job, and get a 401k and be enslaved to this debt monetary system. Teach them how money works by you learning how money works. Teach them that money is just debt. Teach them what good debt is and bad debt is. Don't show them that making $40,000 a year that you're going to go get a car that's $60,000 a year, $60,000, and extend it out over 78 months because you get a $700 car payment. Don't show them that. Say, you know what? I make $40,000 a year and I'm going to drive a hoopty. And I'm going to take that excess capital. I'm going to invest it in the capital markets and be a retail investor. And I'm going to take my money and multiply it. And I'll buy the nice BMW or the nice car, the $700 car payment when I have an asset that can pay for that liability. Us as adults right now, we need to wake up and develop financial literacy. This is a call to action for all Americans to wake up. This Coliseum is here, guys. The Super Bowl was an example of the Coliseum. The Waste Management Open in Arizona, they shut down the alcohol because people were so fucking sloppy at the tournament. Think about that. People were so fucking sloppy at the tournament, they had to stop serving alcohol. The Super Bowl was all about Taylor Swift. We're deep in the Coliseum. This is the Roman days all over again. Wake up. And most people are going to balk at this message, but the people balking at this are the people I'm talking to. You're the one that needs to wake up. It's time to become a disciple, which means discipline. Whatever's showing up within your physical reality means you're a disciple of it. It's time to build a relationship with God and do what Jesus did. He wasn't religious, he was relationship. He went from village to village teaching people how to be disciples, be disciplined. Disciplined in their mind, disciplined in their actions, disciplined in their faith, and build a one-on-one relationship with God. In America, it says in God we trust. That's bullshit. They've taught us to believe in man and material. And I'm here to tell you this is the greatest time in human history for you to become a retail investor, understand how money moves through the system, do the opposite of the 99%, and take your family to the 1%. Warriors, rise! Get your shit together. Love you guys. Remember, I will never proactively DM you. That's not me commenting. Do not send anybody pretending to be me money. I have to say this on every message. There's so many scammers out there. The social media platforms won't do anything about it. This is my only account. I'll never ask you to send me money. I have tons of free resources in my bio. Check it out. Love you guys.
Guest, Congressman Ken McCarthy warning of potential terrorist sleeper cells in the United States where we live, as CBP reportedly tells staff and the Hamas-Hezbollah crew could be crossing the southern border. Watch this soundbite.
I'm concerned about a cell sitting inside America today. We just caught 18 people just last month on the FBI terrorist watch list coming across our border. More than 160 have done it this year, a record breaking. When we're looking around the Middle East and the uprisings popping up around Europe and others, they could be sleeper cells right now in America.
Here to react and break down the border crossings is the man I referred to seconds ago. Fox and Friends Weekend co-host Pete Hegseth. Pete, concerned about the border?
Of course, how could we not be? Think back to 9/11. What terrorists saw was a vulnerability in our security that at that point we didn't see.
Overstaying visas.
Overstaying visas, airports, airplanes, vulnerabilities we were not on our radar. This is all over our radar, and they're very familiar with the openings we have on our southern border. And now the San Diego division of the CBP has put out a memo saying, Hamas, Hezbollah, be on the lookout for people from countries with those allegiances attempting to cross our border.
So let's break it down country by country because they did for us. And tell me if you're a little concerned about this. First off, look at this. Afghanistan, we know they're running for the hills because of the Taliban, but at least we'd like to know if the 6,386, where they're from and who they are.
This is over the course of 2 years. Any one of these countries could harbor individuals with Lebanon, front and center. Iran, front and center.
Egypt is where they came up with the Muslim Brotherhood that gave birth to all these terror
Absolutely gave birth to all of it. A few radicals in Iraq, if I recall. Pakistan, more radical than Afghanistan.
A little bit dangerous?
Just a little bit. You know, the hills over there. Turkey, an increasingly Islamist country, even though they're a member of NATO. Erdogan is taking in that direction. Syria, Yemen, the Houthi rebels. So every single, and these are the ones that are arrested at the border, not the gotaways, which we'll get to in a moment.
All right, now let's talk about the terror watch list because we're also keeping track of that. Let's start in 2019.
Okay, so this, Brian, is what a policy looks like. This is what a policy looks like. Fiscal year 2019. And then you can draw a bright line with things changing in that policy and how it grew. Terror watch list.
New president.
Attempts to cross the border, and it is exploding. This is exponential growth of people, and they may have been wanted to get arrested or not. We don't know. These are people that were encountered and arrested who were on the watch list.
The Homeland Security Secretary was asked, once they came across and you got them, what happened to them? I don't know, was his answer, Mayorkas. So they could have been on the list. Hey, I recognize you from your wanted poster. Good luck in America. We don't know where they are.
We know the answer to most people is I don't know. Where are the people that you've encountered? But the fact that it would be I don't know for people on the terror watch list shows you that they don't have a policy.
All right, so now let's look at the people that we didn't catch. We only saw the back of their heads, I assume. The gotaways.
They have a way of counting and having a rough sense of how many people cross the border without being detained, without being interdicted. 1.5 million people since Joe Biden took office.
Right.
And it's a bleeding wound right now, Brian, because it's gotten only worse in this month. As the conflict is going on in Israel, 1,000 a day. Known gotaways crossing our border from countries all over the globe.
So a couple of things. In the president's request, in his emergency funds, he wants $14 billion for the border. But we don't know if that's going to go to hotels. We don't know if it's going to go for transportation. We don't know if it's going to go for a border wall. We don't know if it's going to go for a new policy. What we hear is two things.
Why the fuck ain't nobody talking about this? They're talking about EMPs being the weapon of choice, and a third of the population could be wiped out quickly. Look, check this out.
And I should say that the EMP committee, their estimate was 8 to 9 out of every 10 Americans could lose their life by the end of the first year. 500,000 people in the air at any given time on 1,000 flights, right? So that's 500,000 people at any moment. Very quickly after that, the SCADA systems begin to fail and you have fire, you have flood. Within 72 hours, you have meltdown at all nuclear facilities. Refrigeration has gone out at supermarkets and at the regional food warehouses. So the food supply ends. You know, there's no access to ATMs or money or financial structure of any type. No access to your prescription medications. You know, no access to law enforcement and no clean water and no food.
We are terrible at listening to warnings about disaster.
That's why everyone in my family has a copy of this book. You'll learn how to protect your home with the EMP shield, build your own hydro generator, learn how to make black powder the dry and wet method, make you a solar oven, to even your own fucking water heater. There's over 70 different DIY projects in here to produce everything that you need on your property. If you see an orange shopping cart somewhere down here, that means it's back in stock. So make sure to grab yours today.
The United States of America is about to be at war.
As
expected, we are now getting word from a U.S. defense official that the retaliation has begun. That U.S. airstrikes from multiple platforms have begun in the retaliation for the deaths of 3 U.S. service members whose bodies were transferred to Dover, Delaware today. Jennifer Griffin is reporting that the strikes are at targets in Syria, and Jennifer is joining us right now from the Pentagon. Jennifer, good to have you with us. Obviously, we've been waiting for word that this is underway. Tell us what you're learning.
Well, Martha, what I'm hearing from senior U.S. defense officials is that strikes from multiple U.S. platforms have begun against targets in Syria. They may not be limited to those targets in Syria, but the first explosions have been heard on the ground, and we can now confirm from a U.S. defense official that the U.S. is involved in those targeted airstrikes. They would not tell me exactly which platforms were firing, but we do know that B-1B Lancer bombers have been deployed to the region. Those are, of course, the Air Force's largest. It's a supersonic warplane that can drop the largest conventional payload. You also have multiple U.S. destroyers in the region that can fire Tomahawks. You have the USS Florida, which is a submarine that also is loaded with about 150 Tomahawk missiles. We've been expecting this. This has been the sort of the worst kept secret in Washington. The president said earlier this week that he had taken a decision. We knew that U.S. Central Command had put together a series of targets, a campaign, if you will. We heard from Defense Secretary Austin yesterday here in the Pentagon briefing room that this would be a multi-tiered and multi-day, if not multi-week, campaign against these Iranian proxies that have been threatening U.S. forces, firing up to 166 times in the last few months at U.S. bases, killing 3 Americans. Those 3 brave Americans were returned home in a dignified transfer. Just moments ago, the president, the defense secretary, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the head of the Army were all there to greet those 3 American soldiers who died when the Iranian-backed proxy fired that drone on Sunday while they were sleeping in their barracks. So that ceremony is over at Dover, and now we're told this is the beginning of what we're told is a long campaign over the coming days to target those Iranian-backed proxies. The problem is, Martha, as we've also been reporting, there's been so much telegraphing that most of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps have been pulled out of those bases, have returned to Tehran, to Iran, and many of those proxy groups have gone into hiding.
Canada will never be the 51st state, but we could be your number 1 friend. We fought in world wars together. We defeated fascism and communism. We stand up for democracy. We have answered the call on fentanyl and on the border. We don't want tariffs. Because we're so close together, it'll only raise prices for all of us. We're a nation of hockey players. We know how to stand up for ourselves. At the same time, we know how to go for a beer together once the game is over. The winds of change can blow through politics, but they'll never change geography. We will always be neighbors. And we should always be friends.
President Donald Trump of the United States and every American who's watching this. Your election in November is far bigger than your country, okay? Donald Trump is needed in this world to bring back peace. His leadership is needed to save the West. All of our countries are being flooded. They are destroying our cultures. They're bringing us down. It's an attack on the West. There's only one person who's going to stop it. You have the opportunity in November with these legends.
2 of 4 Americans who were kidnapped in Mexico are back in the country this morning. Eric James Williams and Latavia Tay McGee were both brought back through Brownsville, Texas yesterday. However, the bodies of their 2 friends remain in Mexico. The 4 of them were abducted Friday after being caught in the crossfire between rival drug cartels. Mexican officials believe the cartel targeted those Americans by mistake. 1 person is in custody and authorities are searching for others. Investigators from both countries are now on the case.
Attacks on U.S. citizens are unacceptable, no matter where or under what circumstances they happen. We will continue to work closely with the Mexican government to ensure justice is done in this case.
The group was reportedly in Mexico so one could receive a cosmetic medical procedure. The U.S. State Department's now warning Americans not to travel to parts of Mexico. The warning impacts most of the 32 states there.
So if you haven't heard, America's on a red flag warning for a genocide in other countries. Other countries are literally protesting for us right now. And like, we're not seeing any of this. Like, the censorship is crazy. There's people in Germany talking about this is how the Holocaust started. I mean, the way our government is not saying anything about this, but I mean, why would they? You guys need to be concerned. Fuck getting scared. Get pissed off. This shit is real.
The IRS has just put out a major statement to the entire country warning Americans that moving forward, the agency will now be using AI to crack down on tax-related enforcement, meaning that as fun as it was to pay taxes and then have some federal bureaucrat decide whether you need to be audited or not, well, moving forward, it'll actually be decided by an AI machine, sort of like a tax GPT. Specifically, the commissioner of the IRS, Mr. Danny Werfel, he said this as a part of a statement released just last Friday. Quote, "There is a sea change taking place at the IRS in every aspect of our operations. The changes will be driven with the help of improved technology, as well as artificial intelligence that will help IRS compliance teams better detect tax cheating, identify emerging compliance threats, and improve case selection tools to avoid burdening taxpayers with needless no-change audits." Now, this move towards AI, it requires a little bit of background, and it also requires you to smash those like and subscribe buttons so that this video, as well as this vital information, can reach ever more people via the YouTube algorithm. Now, with that out of the way, the shift towards AI-based tax compliance, it comes as a direct result of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act that was signed into law by Joe Biden last August. Included in that particular law was around $80 billion that was earmarked to expand the IRS's budget over the next 10 years. Now, after the debt ceiling negotiations earlier this year between Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy, that $80 billion was pared down to $60 billion. Essentially, Congress was able to effectively claw back $10 billion per year for the years 2024 and 2025. But that, of course, still leaves a cool $60 billion for the IRS to play with. And while many people assumed that this would fund a small army of IRS enforcement agents, which still might be the case, but it now appears that a large chunk of this money is actually being funneled into ramping up the use of technology to collect taxes. In fact, the IRS, they released this document right here back in April, wherein they essentially outline what they're going to be doing with the money that's coming to them from the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. That document, by the way, was a cool 150 pages long. And in it, they reference the fact that a significant chunk of the money that's being pumped into the IRS is going to be used to give it a technological facelift, or as they refer to it as, quote, cutting-edge technology, data, and analytics to operate effectively. Now, in this very lengthy plan of theirs, the IRS focused mostly on the customer service aspects of this technology boost. Things like introducing chatbots, different online portals, as well as automated responses to commonly asked questions. However, this plan of theirs, it also explicitly says that the IRS expects the technology-driven enforcement to boost tax collection as well as government revenue. And so again, back in April, this was released as just a plan. But now, well, we're starting to see the execution of this plan come to fruition. According to the IRS, they will now begin to use AI tools to crack down on American taxpayers. Specifically, according to IRS estimates, Americans pay around 85% of the total taxes that they owe, with the difference between what is owed and what is actually paid known as the tax gap. And in terms of how much money is represented by this tax gap, well, according to IRS estimates, between the years of 2014 and 2016, the annual tax gap was around $496 billion. That's $496 billion per year, which, for your reference, is equivalent to around 50,000 tanks that we could be sending over to Ukraine every single year, if only people would pay their taxes. And so, in order to get this money to fund these Ukrainian tanks as well as everything else, well, the IRS is now stepping up and beginning to deploy these artificial intelligence tools in order to find the people who aren't paying their taxes. And in order to do this effectively, besides using your tax forms, your 1099s, and so on, well, the IRS will use three main sources of taxpayer data to pull from and to feed into their AI tool. The first is your previous tax returns in order to establish patterns. The second is publicly available data. And so, for instance, if you happen to be in a music band, they can scan your social media accounts to see how many concerts you play at every single year and compare the number of concerts to the stated income on your tax returns to see whether they line up. And thirdly, the IRS can purchase third-party data about you from different data brokers out there. As an example of what that looks like in practice, back in the year 2020...
Hey, it's getting wild out here. Have y'all seen this? I don't care where you go, but you better not be traveling to Jamaica or the Bahamas. Jamaica has been issued a level 3 warning for travelers, and Bahamas have been issued a level 2 warning. Jamaica spikes and murders triggering travel warning to Americans visiting Caribbean island nation. And Jamaica already, we only like 31 days in this year. and they already had 65 murders. 81 cases, though. 65 murders. That's like a murder for that's 2 murders a day. And they doing homicides. They robbing people. They doing everything you can imagine. Crime rate has went through the roof. As you can see, Jamaica has seen 65 murders since the new year, according to the data released. The latest one comes spiking murders in the Bahamas since January the 1st. This is a level 3, and they're encouraging all Americans to reconsider travel. Cities, violent crimes such as home invasions, armed robberies, sexual assaults, and homicides are common as a reason for the alert. This is wild. Hey, so whatever you doing, wherever you plan on going, I hope this is not one of the places. Because as you can see, they is not playing out there. So be safe, y'all. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Follow for more. We gone.
If all of America's
informing residents on how to stockpile food, baby food, medication, and how to seek shelter during a nuclear attack. Sweden also sent out more than 5 million of these pamphlets there on your screen. And Finland posted one on its website, both urging citizens to prepare for the possibility of war and how to prepare for such.
President Putin has amended Russia's nuclear doctrine today to imply that if American weapons are used against Russian territory, which they now have been, that means that he is potentially in a nuclear confrontation with the United States. Nuclear weapons, 5,500 nuclear warheads, and it's more than the Americans have got, but they're more than the United States. And they have them on a triad of land-based ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, ballistic missile-firing submarines, and aircraft that can launch cruise missiles or whatever with nuclear warheads. So they've got about 1,700 deployed, and again, the United States is only about 150 behind that. Both sides have so many nuclear weapons they could destroy each other.
I urge American citizens to listen to my message and listen to my message closely because things are truly getting out of hand. The U.S. government consistently robs American citizens of their hard-earned money using every single backdoor that they could possibly find. Let me paint a picture for you. You've worked 2 weeks, that's 80 hours, you get your paycheck, off rip, the U.S. government is taking federal and income tax. Depending on what state you're in, they're going to take state tax. You're also required by law to have health insurance, for just in case you get sick. If you don't have health insurance, you'll be penalized by the IRS at the end of the year. And with health insurance, you're required to pay a monthly premium, but your monthly premium does not go towards your deductible, nor does it go towards your copay. And if you're someone who drives in the United States, you're required to have car insurance, just in case you get into a car accident. And you're also required to pay a monthly premium on your car insurance, which does not go towards your deductible whatsoever. If you're one of the lucky Americans to be able to own a home in the United States, you're also required to pay property tax on that home every single year. I've even seen public state parks that ask for payment upon entry, the parks that we pay to have maintained. And that leaves me with the question is, why do we continue to accept the bare minimum from our government when they ask for the maximum from us? And I know how people jump in my comments and say, that's just how it is, that's just how life works, the government does this for us, that for us, blah, 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 blah. At one time in this country, slavery was legal. At one time in this country, women weren't allowed to vote. But somebody had to stand up for change. It's 2023 and it's time for us to stand up for change. Because right now, it's a mess. And nothing's working out in our favor. So if you want to stand on the wrong side of history, you can do that. I don't know who else is with me, but I'm on a mission for change.
It started with a whisper of wind, a single flicker of the lights. Then, without warning, the power grid collapsed. The hum of refrigerators, the subtle buzz of Wi-Fi routers, the glow of countless screens all vanished at once. The city fell silent, save for the confused murmurs of people stepping outside, craning their necks to see if their neighbors shared the same sudden darkness. Phones lit up briefly, only to show no service in mocking letters. The sky, absent of the usual light pollution, revealed stars too beautiful for the grim descent that followed. By morning, chaos had taken root. Without electricity, water pumps ceased to function, leaving homes dry. ATMs were useless and grocery stores locked their doors, unable to process payments. Panic-stricken crowds raided whatever they could find, and the sound of shattering glass echoed through the empty streets. A single tweet had circulated before the blackout, something about a cascading failure in the global power grid. No one knew if it was an accident, an attack, or something worse. All they knew was that the outage wasn't local, and the world had gone silent. Days turned to weeks, and the city devolved into madness. Families fortified their homes with furniture against shattered windows, guarding dwindling supplies. Once friendly neighbors turned into scavengers, their faces hollow with hunger. The nights were the worst. Without power, the world was swallowed by an oppressive blackness, the kind that made you feel like you could dissolve into it. In the dark, you could hear them. Groups of desperate people roaming like wolves, shouting threats and breaking into homes. The only light came from the fires set to distract or destroy, their orange glow flickering like dying hope. Some said the power would come back, but most had stopped believing. Those with generators became targets, their homes raided in acts of violent desperation. Entire communities fractured into distrustful factions, hoarding scraps of food and whispers of old-world comfort. For Sarah, the quiet hum of her dead phone in her pocket felt heavier than ever. She'd held on to it, hoping for a signal, a text, a sign that someone, somewhere, was still in control. But the dead screen reflected her gaunt face and the haunting truth. The lights weren't coming back, and neither was the world they'd once known.
America, this is a warning based on love and humility. Once upon a time, you were very close to Jesus Christ, the Lord of Lords and the King of all kings. Today, you are denying your Jesus. You have walked away from your Lord. You have brought in laws that are against the Almighty God. The very foundation of America today is being shaken. You have denied Jesus. That's why you are in turmoil. That's why you are living in darkness and in total blindness. The moment you took the Holy Bible out of schools, the moment you introduced laws that are offensive to your Jesus Christ, rest assured the wrath of God will come upon you and no one will save you. Come back to the Lord. Otherwise, there will be another empire that is a dragon, will come up and will devour you and the entire globe. Repent, America, before it's too late. Come back to your Lord and to our Lord and to the Lord of all, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Come back.
This fight is coming 100% on January the 20th. We will go to the full extent, depending how far this goes. We will go to the extent of cutting off their energy, going down to Michigan, going down to New York State, and over to Wisconsin.
Earlier today, we issued a worldwide caution alert where we advised U.S. citizens that due to increased tensions in various locations around the world, the potential for terrorist attacks, demonstrations, or violent actions against U.S. citizens and interests, the Department of State advises U.S. citizens overseas to exercise increased caution.
Were there any specific threats that the State Department saw that led them to issue that alert?
I would just say we're monitoring conditions around the world. We're monitoring conditions in the region. We take a number of factors into consideration when making that determination. It's not necessarily any one thing, but everything that we're watching around the world.
This FBI whistleblower has a warning to the American people.
About a minute and a half, and then I want to turn the rest of my time to Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir. I would just say that I consider the hearing today my last act of service as a public servant for the United States of America, and I'll give you my professional opinion. I personally have no confidence that the FBI will rein in its own conduct. There are no current effective checks and balances against them conducting lawless action with any type of correction in a legitimate time frame. Their ability to overclassify information can allow them to stonewall forever. My other recommendations are in the natural order. First, vote. The second is the Second Amendment. Arm yourself and know how to defend yourself. Make 3 to 4 friends in your neighborhood and promise to come to each other's mutual aid in times of hardship. And during the Great Depression, people stocked up a pantry. So I think that's a good practice, especially in our economic times. And make sure you have 3 to 4 months of food. As a person of faith, I'd say pray the rosary and read the gospel of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and live it every day. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the time.
from Mexico by suspected cartel gunmen as a group of illegal aliens were being brought across the river. I'm told that Border Patrol returned fire. Nobody hit on either side right there. And we are going to continue on with this as Texas DPS tells Bill Melugin that they are now patrolling the area and has a drone in the air and can see Mexican military assets now staging on the other side of the river there. So again, we are going to be following this story here for you on Live Now from Fox. It is very fluid at this moment, but this comes at a time when big changes are happening at the White House when it comes to border security, and a lot of these measures are taking place pretty much on a daily basis. We're also seeing mass deportations happening really now every day, as just yesterday, more than 900 people were picked up from major cities, from Boston to Los Angeles as well. And we were bringing that to you, just some of the many arrests that were happening yesterday, including an ISIS member that was accused there of crossing the border illegal as well. So again, some major disturbances though happening on the border. There's gunshots reportedly fired at U.S. Border Patrol agents. They are investigating right now, and we will keep an eye on this developing story for you all right here on Live Now from Fox.
One last word, which is I hope this is my last time at this podium, at least for a little while. I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, the only thing that would bring me back is an unexpected event in the next few days, which, as you all know, is totally possible given what we've seen over the course of the past years. But if it is, in fact, my last time before you, I just want to say thank you for what you guys do every day. Thank you for putting up with me.
This is a fucking warning to anyone currently living in the USA. I don't know if you saw the news or not, but today there were a lot of protests in Chicago, where I live, New York, as well as California. Now, it's getting to the point where it is scary for the future of America. Because there were chants today in the streets, "Death to America." I just saw a video yesterday of a guy in a Chicago conference center giving a speech teaching the participants how to chant in a different language, "Death to America." The United States flag is getting burned in the streets in these protests. If you look about anything on my page, you know that I think the United States government is extremely corrupt, and I'm calling them out daily, as well as many other people are. However, anarchy is not the solution, and a lot of people will unfortunately lose their lives if this nonsense continues. These delusional groupthink people think that they're making a statement. No, you're just making an ass out of yourself, as well as you're putting the lives of many people in danger and escalating tensions instead of trying to find solutions. So because of that, my sincerest fuck yous. People, do not participate in this groupthink ideology that just because you support something that goes against our government, you have to burn our flag in the streets and scream "Death to America." That is not being a rebel. That is psychotic. And while everyone has the right to think what they want, that is objectively not the right thing to do. Stay blessed.